Ei, Hunter, Charles Oliveira versus Max Holloway, BMF. Vamos fazer acontecer essa?
Hey, Hunter, Charles Oliveira and Max Holloway, BMF. Let's make that happen.
Charles Oliveira, thank you. Thank you so much for having one of the best, most perfect callouts in all of 2025, and for setting up the MMA community with this absolute clash of two legendary UFC fighters when he will step into the Octagon against Max Holloway with the BMF Championship on the line in the main event of UFC 326 this upcoming Saturday in the home of the UFC, Las Vegas, Nevada, T-Mobile Arena. And don't get it mistaken, not only is that Platinum BMF title on the line this upcoming weekend, but this is also a very high level stakes opportunity for both of these fighters who sit at 3 and 4 respectively in the lightweight division, a division that currently in the title picture is very murky right now as we await the return of Ilia Topuria. Justin Gaethje just defeated Paddy Pimblett in January to become the interim lightweight champion. You have the number one contender Arman Tsarukyan getting into fights in RAF wrestling. So it should come as no surprise that the lightweight division continues to be at the forefront of the UFC's landscape in leading the charge in terms of hype surrounding its weight class when compared to the rest of the divisions that fall behind. So buckle up, because there's not a chance, there is a 100% guarantee that this fight will deliver in all facets of the fight game for as little or as long as it lasts. Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira combined for 67 UFC fights, 36 for Do Bronx and 31 for Blessed, 47 victories in the UFC with 24 for Charles and 23 for Max, 34 finishes, Charles Oliveira with 21, the most in UFC history, and Max Holloway with 13, and the same exact number of post-fight bonuses, 34, and again 21 to 13, Charles Oliveira sitting atop the throne in that category as well. And they both have also been a part of two of the longest win streaks in UFC history. For Max Holloway, between January of 2014 and December of 2018, he would tally off 13 wins in a row, and between June of 2018 and May of 2022, Charles Oliveira would win 11 fights in a row. Not to mention that during both of those respective win streaks for both fighters, they would go on to become undisputed world champions in the featherweight and lightweight divisions, with Max Holloway dethroning the all-time great Jose Aldo in June of 2017, then would go on to defend that title 3 consecutive times over Jose Aldo, Brian Ortega, and Frankie Edgar. And for Oliveira, he would head into UFC 262 in May of 2021, vying for a vacated lightweight title against Michael Chandler, where he would knock him out and then go on to defend the belt against Dustin Poirier, and not technically, but in my opinion technically, another defense against Justin Gaethje, but it didn't count because he missed weight by like less than half a pound. All of those accomplishments, all of those title fight victories, all of those finishes, and yet here they are in the year 2026 still going as strong as ever, with Max Holloway having won 6 of his last 8 fights and 4 of his last 5, including being 2-0 in the lightweight division over the course of his last 2 fights. And for Charles Oliveira, while yes, there's a little bit more red as of late as compared to when he was on that massive win streak, he still enters UFC 326 having won 2 of his last 3 fights, and the only loss was to Ilia Topuria, the number 2 ranked pound for pound fighter in the world, when they would compete for the vacated lightweight strap last summer. And Oliveira will enter this fight off of a victory against Mateus Gamrot in his home country of Brazil, where he would essentially dominate that fight up until getting the second round face crank submission to right the ship from his summer 2025 loss. And now here he is against Max Holloway with an opportunity to become the BMF champion and potentially become a number 1 contender for the undisputed lightweight title. And Holloway will enter the night off of a victory against Dustin Poirier in Dustin Poirier's home state of Louisiana last summer, where they would compete for the BMF title in the main event of UFC 318 in what would also be Dustin Poirier's retirement bout, where they would go toe-to-toe for 25 minutes in a back-and-forth war, where Holloway would come out as the victor and avenge his 2 prior losses to Poirier. And the last loss for Max Holloway was the very same man that last defeated Charles Oliveira, and that was Ilia Topuria, but that was down in the 145-pound weight class, where they would compete for the championship after Ilia Topuria dethroned Alexander Volkanovski early on in 2024. He would then go on to successfully defend in October of 2024 at UFC 308 by becoming the first man to ever knock out Max Holloway, and he did it in round 3 of their back and forth scrap. And we can't forget that Max Holloway would become the BMF champion by having that all-time classic at UFC 300, the biggest card in mixed martial arts history, where he would absolutely put a beating on Justin Gaethje and then land the knockout heard round the world with just 1 second left in the 5th and final round that would put Gaethje out cold, becoming one of the most viral moments in the Ultimate Fighting Championship's 30-plus year lifetime to date. And when comparing the numbers, I think it's worth noting that while Charles Oliveira does finish his fights at a higher clip, with 32 of his 36 professional victories coming by way of stoppage, 22 by sub and 10 by knockout, he also gets finished in more of his losses than his opponent Max Holloway, as he has been stopped in 9 of his 11 losses, with 5 coming by way of knockout and 4 by way of submission, whereas Max Holloway has only finished 14 of his 27 with 12 knockouts and 2 submissions, but only been finished in 2 of his 8 losses, one by way of knockout to Ilia Topuria and the other by way of submission against Dustin Poirier more than a decade ago. All of the 6 other losses for him have come by way of decision, and 3 of those 6 were to one of the greatest fighters and featherweights of all time in Alexander Volkanovski. These two have quite literally fought nothing but the best of the best in both of their respective weight classes, and have even fought one another. It's crazy that that little wrinkle detail is just now coming into the fold. These two have faced off and been in the octagon against one another before, and it came way back in August of 2015 in Canada, where both of them would headline a fight night, the first of both of their respective careers, and they would only get to have action for 1 minute and 39 seconds before the fight would have to be waved off due to an esophagus injury on the side of Charles Oliveira, leaving Max Holloway as the victor that night. And now, more than a decade later, after all of the accomplishments that these two have garnered alongside one another, parallel careers in both the featherweight and lightweight divisions, they now will face off once again, with Charles Oliveira sitting at 36 years of age, right at the end of his prime years, but still proving that he can be a tough out for anyone in this lightweight division, and Max Holloway at 34, still in those prime years, vying for an opportunity to become the lightweight champion of the world, something that he has had the opportunity to do once before, although it was for an interim title in that instance, back in 2019. These are quite literally two of the most beloved fighters in not only the UFC's history, but in all of the damn sport of mixed martial arts history. You'd be hard-pressed to find any fan out there that hates on either one of these two fighters. And so it pains me so much, as excited as I am for this main event to throw down at UFC 326, because that means that one of these two men will have to lose, and I just don't know if I can handle it. And when it comes down to the nitty-gritty, when it comes down to the numbers, how is this fight going to take place? Max Holloway, one of the most accredited strikers in all of the UFC, having landed 3,655 significant strikes, more than 1,300 more than the second place Sean Strickland, who sits at 2307. Are you kidding me? And it's very possible that at the end of UFC 326, Max Holloway could potentially hit the 4,000 total strikes landed mark, as he will enter the event with 3,907, which, yes, is again over 1,000 more than the second place Merab Dvalishvili at 2782. Those are two records that I believe may never be touched in the remainder of the UFC's history, to be quite honest with you, especially when you consider that Max Holloway does not have any sight on retirement just yet, but instead on chasing greatness and becoming the lightweight champion of the world, thus him being able to label himself as a two-weight world champion, and you can tag that BMF belt alongside with it. And obviously Charles Oliveira is one of the most successful jiu-jitsu practitioners in the UFC as well, with 17 of his 21 UFC finishes coming by way of submission. He has every single submission attempt that you can imagine down on the canvas, and he may just need all of them to put away Max Holloway here. Right now, Justin Gaethje and Paddy Pimblett hold the spot for the fight of the year so far through the first 2 months and 5 events of 2026, but I think at the end of UFC 326, we could potentially have a new headliner in that category, and it is Max Holloway versus Charles Oliveira, but of course that means the fight will have to go long enough. And when I can quite literally see a fight going all 6 methods, a knockout, a submission, and a decision for Max Holloway, and a knockout, a submission, and a decision for Charles Oliveira, you can't find a more fan-friendly matchup right now in all of the UFC than this one right here. And now all the chatter is over, the discussions are done, and it's time to turn it over to you and get your predictions for UFC 326 before the fight commences this upcoming Saturday, March 7th of 2026. surely a massive night in the lightweight division to say the least. So give me all of your thoughts on this matchup down in the comments below, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, be sure to also drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you are new, because every single week I break down and discuss the biggest and best fights and storylines heading into each card, and I give my thoughts and opinions on MMA news and fight announcements as well. Not to mention I also recap the most meaningful results in the aftermath of every card as well. And you can join the community on social media at Verbal Spar MMA on X, Instagram, and TikTok, as well as like the Facebook page Verbal Sparring MMA, and you can follow along on your favorite audio listening platforms such as Spotify and Apple, where every Monday and Friday podcast episodes release there. Have a great weekend, enjoy this massive fight, and I will see you in the next video.